But what are the lessons for us in Nigeria for what is happening in some other African countries, or particularly in the Sahel? Certainly, there are a number of lessons Nigeria should learn, and not just learn, but ensure that we are able to address some of these existential threats that today we are seeing happening elsewhere. My point is, we should not take a lot of things for granted. Nobody ever expected Sudan to explode the way it has done now. We have seen what has happened in Ethiopia. We have seen what has happened in the Great Lake regions. And we have also witnessed what is happening in the Congo area. Therefore, Nigeria should not take a lot of things that we are taking for granted for some of these things to continue. One, how are we managing our diversities, multiculturalism and pluralism as a people of about 430 million people, made up of different ethnic groups, religious groups, and a lot more. I believe in the past, we have managed our diversities much better than we are managing the diversities in this country today. Let me just take two aspects from which I'm much familiar with: education and the media. In the educational sector, our educational sector is increasingly getting fragmented and segmented and poorly managed. In the past, a school would admit people from different socioeconomic groups, and they go to the same class, go to the same secondary school, go to the same universities. Today, because of privatization, we have completely separated our education system, one for the poor and one for the rich, from the primary up to the university level. And those who graduate will come to Abuja here and corner good jobs to the detriment of those who went to poorly equipped primary and secondary schools. This is one. Number two, we have also segmented our schools along religious lines. Number three, people no longer move on transfers except perhaps those who are in the military services. We all cocoon ourselves in our own local provinces, and because of that, we become local champions in our own groups. And we do not know what is happening elsewhere. And all of these things are compounded with the social media and the explosion in the digital media sector, where you have online media, digital media, and what are the consequences? Misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, rumor, fake news, hate speech, offensive speech, and all of that. Exchanging hatred among ourselves. Unfortunately, some of our political leaders are also not getting matters in terms of managing these diversities in a country called Nigeria. And we will see how explosions are occurring sometimes with active connivance of local leaders. Not only that, religiously too, we have segmented ourselves. You have people today who can start primary school, go to their own sectoral primary school, sectoral secondary school, and sectoral universities, believing that other sects or other sets of people are not Nigerians as they are. These are some of the challenges that we are poorly managing, and we could see the consequences in the way we communicate among ourselves, and in the way we also manage some of the explosions that are occurring. And these things cannot be solved by military fiat. It must be managed like we have done in the past for us to be able to live together and agree that Nigeria is for everybody and heterogeneity is a necessity in life. Otherwise, we shall continue to be bickering among ourselves. And we also need to take lessons from what is happening elsewhere. Nobody ever expected Somalia, a country of one, very homogeneous, but they have not been living in peace for the past 20, 30 years. Sudan, nobody expected it would explode. And ours, if it's going to explode, it's going to be on the basis of ethnicity, it's going to be on the basis of religion, and these are very dangerous and unimaginary trends that you cannot just solve easily.
Yeah, thank you. That's Professor Pate, and the points he's made are easy to pick out, that we need lessons for Nigeria. Number one, we should take nothing for granted. Number two, that we should ask ourselves how we are managing our diversities. Number three, that our diversities were better managed in the past. Again, that we have provincialism, and it's also going ahead to affect education. If you look at the admission patterns, if you look at the graduation patterns, if you look at the fact that people also perform their youth service in their various states and therefore know nothing about Nigeria, the element he brought out as a particular instance, he mentioned transportation. I could talk about Saminaka, Lafia, Kajuru, and all of that because I traveled by train as a child. The train transport was a means of teaching us the physical and human geography of Nigeria. Now, nobody does that anymore. In addition, the elite doesn't even do that. They go by private jet. So that's a strong element that also the people and also the elite have also that limited exposure. The same element in religion. So, very solid points about lessons Nigeria should take from what's going on in other places. And from there, we move on to... Yes, sir? Major General Atolebe, retired. 5 minutes, sir?
The CEC, head of it and the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, General Absalom, Minister, our lecturer, SRSGs in 2 different locations, and we happen to be your foot on the ground in Darfur. The CBS, ladies and gentlemen, the moderator has actually guided us on some areas perhaps we need to talk about. And I will just take 2 or 3 of them. The first one is on funding. The UN takes adequate care of the tracking of funds. And these protocols have been signed by the members of the African Union as well as those in the ECOWAS. What we are failing to do is the implementation part. And if you go in Nigeria, we have a number of people who have already been identified as sponsors, but we do not see any of them being got to book. And then I go to the illicit movement of small arms and light weapons. Just last week, we had a program in the National Center for SLAW. And what we brought out in the discussion was the fact that the UN is still complaining till now that data that are given to them on how to handle this particular problem are not disaggregated. So in order to make sure that these issues are properly addressed, we need to do more. When we are compiling our data, we need to break them into bits so that we see how the UN can now take charge of some of these issues. So let me just say something about the multilateral agreement and others which forms the basis of the military coalition. And I will say that what informed our participation in ECOMOG then was the fact that the UN, Article 2 of the UN Charter provides that we can carry out protection of other countries that are being threatened by another nation. And then Article 3 of the Organization of African Unity also states to that effect, to support the sovereignty of every nation, that you can't just take up arms and then walk into another country. And this was what informed the mutual assurance in defense, which was formulated under the ECOWAS. So it was easy for us to just get up on instructions of our Commander-in-Chief and the other leaders in other countries to move in to Liberia and to Sierra Leone. Now, as we have it today, what we have on the ground, we keep talking about ECOWAS standby force. And then we graduate to African standby force. Are it just for the template? Because now, what we have heard today is that the CDS has taken a very broad position by moving into Niger and seeing how we can, because security is not something that we can leave to just one country to solve. What the LAD talked about then, that is mutual assurance for is that you cannot see the house of your neighbor burning and then you sit by and say it's not going to come to you. And that was the reason why we had to go into that intervention. What I'm trying to bring forward here is that if we have something that is called multinational joint task force, and the ECOWAS standby force has the command, the Western Command and the Eastern Command, the one of the Eastern Command is under Nigeria, and the one of the Western Command is under Senegal. So, and we are trying to do something like replicating that under the arrangement of multinational joint task force. So why can't we do a similar thing to the left of the West African region, so that we can also have another strong force there to see how they can intervene in these states of the Sahel. And this is very important. So I will just also add that we have a lot of these other countries that are sitting by. Then we have a lot of all these other countries that are sitting by, I mean, with whom we can engage and come and assist in some of these areas. What am I will just take the case of Rwanda. Rwanda has deployed 3,500 troops in Madagascar, countering terrorism. They have also deployed in Central African Republic. Okay? And then Rwanda also, beyond the shores of Africa, they provide security for oil companies across the Middle East. These things are just because they know how to engage their troops. A lot of countries have troops sitting back who are not doing anything right now, and we can bring them in. And for me, I talk about ECOWAS ESF Plus. When you talk about ESF Plus, we are talking about having the organic people and then perhaps bringing more people from outside. There are other countries that are prepared to come and support us, but we need to get these multilateral agreements and all these bilateral agreements into focus and then let them function. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, General. The last episode, I thought I should draw attention to that. When in 2006 we got into the Ministry of Education, we've got data on Nigeria. Nigeria had 9,700 secondary schools. There were 10 million children out of school. I told the minister, I don't believe this. Let's carry out a school census. We carried out a school census and found 14,543 secondary schools, which means that nearly half of the schools should not be inspected, are not on the radar, and that's the part of producing a human capital. Then in terms of 10 million children, I said, well, I think we can honestly say that at least each state has 500,000 children out of school. Now, 36 states, that will give you 80, so that's not correct. We carried out school census, not school census. Yeah, school census. Now, using the previous, the last population figures of Nigeria, the number of children within the age bracket that ought to be in primary school was 7 point something million. The school census showed that only 23 point something million of them were in school. At the secondary level, the number that ought to have been in school was 33.4, the number in school was 33.9, the number in school was 6.4. So that's already in excess of 15 million. Look around us. There are states that have up to 2 million children at school and all of that. So the point is making at our statistics is at two levels. One, we need correct statistics. Number two, is segregation of statistics. If I go to the DG of NTA and say, oh, NTA needs capacity building, he will say yes. When he can take executive decisions, if I tell him and I discover 8 is in the area of management, 7 is in broadcasting, he can take decisions. Disaggregation, that disaggregation has only complicated matters for him because he can't limit on that. So that's a very valid point to take on data disaggregation. Then also the apparent confusion between the UN Charter provisions, AU, all of them, the provisions are clear and ought to do what we need to do. But not adhering to them presents a challenge. An issue raised about the ECOWAS standby for African standby for. We must ask ourselves, are we creating these things in order to have the next stand out? Are they the result of an integration of the previous efforts? How does MNJTF fall into all of this, etc.? That's the kind of cohesion. And that's because of the commander. If there are possible alternatives of command in the theater, everybody is in danger. And I think that's the concern is let's decide what we have a wing to the west. Now that's something. But there must be a central command coordinating all of that. Yeah, the example even of Rwanda, that's something. If Rwanda can be doing so much in other places, he can do a lot in Africa. Thank you, General. And on that note, we quickly go to Dr. Kabira Damu for his short update. Okay, yes. Sorry, so your personal. Please.
Yes, sir. The Honorable Sir. Special guest. Audience. have been discussing intelligence and diplomacy, which is derived from a very breathtaking overview of political stability and crippling insecurity in the Sahel, owing to the important factors that Dr. Jovas has identified. For us, I think the biggest challenge I can see now in all of this discussion is that we have a golden nut to crack, and that is what happened January this year when 3 of our countries decided to withdraw from ECOWAS, and that's the core of Sahel for the statistics that we got earlier. So I'll be looking at it first. What do we do? How do we deal with it? Because without dealing with that core issue, whatever we discuss will not resonate, and will not have the bearing of what we want to achieve. So I said, for me, Nigeria needs to consider 2 concepts that underpin the goal that we are looking at. First, we need to embrace statecraft in an age of connectivity. Statecraft in an age of connectivity. What does it mean? It simply means, how do countries work together even when we disagree? Because we have disagreements, but we still work together. And I'll give an example as I go on. The second concept is, how do we find the confluence between statecraft and spycraft? By the time we go through that, we then understand exactly how do we move forward to discuss all the various issues that the Dr. Jovas has identified and how we should go forward. First, the first one I will describe as connectivity statecraft. In other words, the Westphalian model of state actors has changed. The global world that we live in, things have moved on. So, what do we do when we have a situation that we have in Sahel? Connectivity statecraft says that there's scope for collaboration, even when we have conflict, when we have disagreements. And a fantastic example I want to give is this. In October 2021, the state of Israel, a Jewish nation, opened an embassy in Abu Dhabi. Just imagine that scenario. A Jewish nation, for the first time in history, with all the avalanche of problems that they have, and disagreement, and hatred, and mistrust, the deep preamble of distrust that they see between the Arab world and the Jewish nation did not stop Israel. Prime Minister, Foreign Minister Yabi went to Abu Dhabi, and all the Gulf states received him in Abu Dhabi. That's what I call connectivity statecraft. And now we should apply that to what is happening in Sahel. Just to give us as an example. And in fact, I could multiply more examples. US and China are fighting over Taiwan. That has not stopped them from connecting with their interests. While agreeing that we are going to disagree on this issue, but we can still agree on this issue. It is that kind of attitude I want and wish Nigeria to consider in engaging with the dispute state. Dr. Jovas have given us a clear overview and what we need to do. But we need to crystallize it and itemize it and go with a clear idea that we want to connect with states that disagree with us. That's the first one. The second one, which I don't want to rush through, is but before I leave that, I was listening to the US Attorney General, the ongoing hunger, and he used the word in his opening statement. He used the word networked multilateralism in dealing with world conflicts. We all know what's going on in Middle at the moment. So that's one idea I want us to consider in dealing with the problems and challenges that we have identified in the Sahel. The second one, which again, from my background, is I have to talk about spycraft and statecraft. How can we find a confluence between statecraft and skycraft? Nigeria did it in 2014. I will give another example again. At the height of Boko Haram, I was in office, and Cameroon will not talk to Nigeria about Boko Haram. Niger will not. They just give you information you already have, which really does not add up. So the French president and the president of Cameroon agreed that all our heads of state must meet in Paris. That is Nigeria, Cameroon, Benin, Niger, and Chad. All the heads of the Paris president went to Paris. And they came up with the idea that we should now have a platform to engage in intelligence sharing, real life intelligence sharing. And that was what led to the creation of what we have in Africa here, Regional Intelligence Fusion Unit. It's in the area somewhere there. And with that, the 5 countries have their intelligence officers meeting in Abuja there every morning with their laptops exchanging real-time information. If Boko Haram is moving into Cameroon, we let them know. If they are moving to Nigeria, really like real time. It's not a question of writing reports. Because we have a data system that allows that to happen. Now, so I think we should now look at how do we now connect, find that conflict between those two. I see it as missing. And that's why we got to where we got to the Niger and the situation in the Sahel. It is diplomacy and intelligence that will take us to where we are looking for. Before I forget, I'm so happy that the CBS is here. He went to Niger in August. What is the outcome? Niger pulled out of MNDTF July last year. Niger has now agreed to come back. That is an example of connectivity statecraft. What the army has done, the other segments of the government, but too similar. It is then you can now dissolve this miasma of distrust. These mountains that we are looking at, you can resolve it with intelligence, with diplomacy. That is, we have a good example. What the CDS did is an eye-opener, because we thought we can't even deal with. And one other institution with the Niger Republic, we used to have Nigeria Niger Joint Commission. It's there, it's monitored at the moment. You can remember that. We need to now dictate our activities on what I refer to in my job. We call it back channels. Forget what you read on newspapers. Government can find themselves on newspapers. The intelligence officers are meeting behind and teasing out the economy. That is what I just wanted to quickly, because without dealing with these superstructural issues, but when we discuss, we not get the traction we are working for in terms of getting where we're going. So my conclusion is, just as diplomacy, through collectivity statecraft, can utilize our relationships. Okay. The intelligence at its core can assist us in breaking down these big conflicts. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Excellence. Thank you very much. He took his drive from the angle of intelligence and diplomacy. He said the person we need is correct problem identification. Then the withdrawal by the core Sahel states, as you mentioned, from ECOWAS and the President said challenge is correct, because it really created a sense of instability within the sub-region in terms of political coalition. Now we brought out these two new concepts I think should be taken seriously and further analyzed, and even further papers written on them, because it's one of the experience. And the points being made, even for those without experience, are very easy to see their value. Statecraft, in an age of connectivity and conflict between statecraft and spycraft. He said we should go for collaboration in conflict situations. See the example of Israel, how Israel could establish an embassy which was considered a dangerous and hot territory, and his advice is that let's find out how to apply this around us in dealing with the conflicts. Networked multilateralism is also drawn from the same concept of spycraft, but yeah, he says that yes, they said they are not talking according to His Excellency, but they were called to a meeting in France. Lo and behold, they began to not only talk, but they are speaking in tongues. The point is this: there are mutual interests
And within the context of that, there might just be one thing about which we don't agree. We allow that to overshadow everything. And I think that meeting led to everybody realizing that yes, there may be something I don't like about it, maybe quarreling over that, but our lives are in danger. So at least in this area, let us collaborate. I believe that was the point being driven there. Then intelligence officers, yes, meeting. Now he's saying let's combine safeguards, networking, and spycraft. Because let's face it, once two states are listed, part of what is going on is that spying is going on both sides. The way I agree. The way I agree. It's never, nobody comes to a meeting between two states as a friendly meeting. You come for your national interest. So the return of Niger is a good comment that points out. Now, economic program, I want to add to that, or you also consider exchange programs. Is it not possible, for instance, to invite some of their people for training in our school? At the federal level, it used to be part of the policy in education, but I know that my friend from Southern Zaria school in Umaya, the states were doing exchanges, not happening anymore. But it's also something, a form of it's a form of diplomatic engagement, even if you like neo-colonialism. I remember when there was a training at NTA, one of the suggestions I made to the staff, look, why don't you offer free training for other media houses? You have the experience, you have the profile, you have the stature, and you progressively become a reference. So the joint commission you mentioned, it is true, and I believe it's true because it's saying that it's more important. It should be revived. I believe we have platforms that can aid what we are trying to do. But the other thing I want to add there, back channels, yes, those back channels must include the stations. If I want to go to Canada and talk to people in any part of the area, and yes, not but you know the privilege of the moderator. Of course, So the element of back channels is a critical point to follow from. So we call on, yes, we invite you, Kabir, Dr. Kabir, to give it a shot.
Thank you very much, moderator, Professor, Your Excellency, Chairman, former President, the guest speaker, Dr. Chambers, Honorable Minister, the CDS, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I would like to start with perhaps the basics. And I think that's just to remind us that at the moment, I think there is a disparity in our understanding of the concept of security itself. And so if we speak about insecurity, perhaps it's even important to identify how do we bring that disparity together so that, especially when it comes from an understanding of the government and then the people who are governed, how do we bring the two together to agree that this is what we mean by insecurity or security? Earlier on, we had the National Security Advisor representing the President speaking about the successes that have been achieved here in Nigeria. How many people in Nigeria can actually relate to those successes that have been mentioned by the National Security Advisor? Now, and rooted in that, perhaps, is a function, a failure of a function in government, which is that of strategic communication, to be able to translate and transfer to the people the objectives of certain policy direction, so that people can tie the key into it and then support that policy direction. I think it's absolutely important. I'm speaking at the national level, but then how do we even move to the regional level, so that when ECOWAS or the Sahel region speaks about insecurity or security, we're speaking the same language. And this is important in the context of the lecture or paper presented by the guest speaker. We've seen 3 countries, or 4 countries at the moment, being governed by military juntas. And what worries from within the context of the point I'm making is the enormous support that they have received from their forces. And part of the reason that the junta gave when they intervened is insecurity as a case in point. The reality, however, is that security has not improved. But they are having their way. The people are still supporting them for the simple reason that they've been able to communicate their agenda in a manner that the people can and relate to people. So how do we think the other either 12 or 11 members of ECOWAS may not be affected by the same spectra that affected these 4 countries if we continue along the trajectory? So I think it's very important that we start from that point of view. Here in Nigeria, in 2019, a revised national security strategy was introduced, and the essence of that document was to shift the paradigm from a state-centric approach to security to a citizen-centered approach to security. 5 years down the road, unfortunately, not much has been done in terms of achieving the very objective, the imperative of that document. We have a unique opportunity. In 5 years, that document is going to be reviewed. The implementation component of that document, I think it's time to conduct, perhaps the government should look at it and ask critical questions. What went wrong? Why was the imperative of that document not implemented? And I say this because it's something that can be extended to other countries in the region, so that the people in the region can relate to, again, the policies that government is trying to implement. The second point, which is tied to the lecture, what the mandate given by the moderator, is the issue of social cohesion. That didn't come up enough, I think, in our conversation. What are those reasons why we have a near collapse social cohesion? In most countries of the region, it came out in terms of the community relations that we see at the moment, which leads to conflict in several instances. And then the third point is conflict mediation and peace building mechanisms. I think, unfortunately, both the formal and informal ones have collapsed. But what are we doing as a people to look at ways to revamp this conflict? Conflict will continue to occur, and like we've seen, just like we spoke earlier on, the Sahel region is the hotspot, the epicenter for conflict in the region. But then, unfortunately, those mechanisms for addressing this conflict have also collapsed in that. So I think one principle is to look at how we can evolve, and I can see the work around that. We set up platform mechanisms, and His Excellency just told us earlier on of one that was set up when he was in government. But we also have everyone systems and every response systems. Why are they not effective? ECOWAS has one. At the national level, we do have one. We have agencies that have that responsibility, but unfortunately, we are seeing a proliferation and an increase in the conflict situation. I believe that we can strengthen this particular component, conflict resolution and peace building, perhaps we can help in changing the trajectory. At the moment, the bold trajectory is not very good. If you look at 2008 and where we are in 2024, what we are seeing is an increase in we need to change that. Let it start coming down. In conclusion, we're about to have a challenge in this region where a proxy war, as you know, between Russia and the Western countries is being extended into the region. What are we doing about it as a region?
Thank you very much, sir. Very much. It's actually a good point about the approach. Good news, there will be policy review, which will enable us, I think you say it's 5 years now, get the people more involved, mediation and peace building, early warning systems, and the final conclusion that look, if we look at it today, things are looking even worse than they were doing. Then the warning about proxy war. We saw Russian flags during the last riot, and the other persons are played. There's an Englishman as well declared wanted and put a bounty on his head for coming here to strike. So all of that together, we've taken the first shot from the panelists, so each of them will now have 2 minutes to sum their thoughts against the original submissions, but attentive to the actual lecture itself, and short to their question, attentive to the original submission and the observations of their comments. We will go in reverse order now, beginning with you, Doc.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I think the issues are clear. They've been laid out. Issues around especially climate change, proliferation of small arms and terrorism, the role that organized criminal gangs, especially the impact of illicit funds on the economy within the region, and then of course foreign interference. Both multilateral and bilateral diplomacy that it needs to be strengthened. national power. We did a lot, and I want to credit the current president of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for emphasizing that point around national power. But then we need to harness it, and harnessing it means ensuring that residents, citizens, everybody understand and buy into government policy. The point made by the guest speaker around the weakness of institutions, I think is a key point. Over time, this issue has come up separately. Nobody would come from abroad or anywhere to come and implement these recommendations that we're making. There are recommendations that would be implemented by us, our people. And unfortunately, if you look at the politics of some of our civil servants, then it's something to be worried about.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you, moderator. Again, I would suggest that, or I would submit that the Ministry and Intelligence can frequently encourage convergence of interests and giving support for the citizens. In this sense, I will make a reference to my earlier mistake. I was in the Foreign Secretariat for 10 years as head of Africa Department. I would have an instrument which we call Secretary General's Bureau. I'm so glad that His Excellency is here. It's one of assets that we all secretariats use for this. Foreign of state. I'm also glad that Dr. Chambers is here. He has done a lot of relationship with the Foreign Secretariat in dealing with this kind of issues. So I would like to see us dust off these principles that we used and worked in the past, and revitalize them and use it in resolving this problem in the Sahel.
Thank you very
Without
much.
that, I think we have a big gap. Okay.
Thank you very much. Major General, that's all we do.
Thank you once more, Your Excellencies. I made my point very clear on what we need to do on the side of the Sahel states, and that is by introducing perhaps another multinational force that will help them on the other side of the fight. But I just want to make two more comments, and that has to do with some level of flexibility that we are not experiencing with institutions. If it is written inside the ECOWAS protocol that if somebody overthrows a government, then you should impose sanctions. Please, people who are in ECOWAS, African Union, needed to, first of all, conduct a quick research that we advise the decision that will be made before they now bring it to the heads of state or heads of government and tell them to make pronouncements. Because the situation in Mali is not the same with Niger. The situation in Niger is not the same with Mali and Burkina Faso. Our relationship with Niger cannot even allow us to take the same step that we are going to take with other countries. This came out very clearly. The second one has to do with our troops. And I just need to tell the CDS that the Israel, who has some level of collaboration with the civilian populace, they try to establish what we call some hearts and minds. When we vacate, we need to see how we can reintroduce some of these at federal government level to see how we can bring support to people that have been free from those areas.
Thank you very much.
But thank you very much. I will still dwell on domestic issues because for us to be effective internationally, we must organize ourselves. And how can we continue to use education as an instrument of national integration like we have done in the past? Our elites need to examine themselves, to examine themselves and also see these policies and some of our behaviors that are counter to the unity of this country. And once our youths are not united, our youths do not even believe in the existence of the country, like we have seen recently. There was a study, please take your time, browse the study and check. There was a study that was conducted across Africa, including Nigeria. 60% of African youths, based on that study, don't believe they have a future in their countries, and they want to live at the next available price. And they get reasons that because of poor governance, because corruption is eating into their future, and the exploitation of natural resources with the connivance of leaders who are dangerously undermining our minerals, whatever, for them, they see there's no future. So then, once you are good, your young people don't even believe in the existence of the country, then you need to address the future. So we need to look at ourselves and see how we can address issues in education, issues in social and economic reforms that can be sensitive to young people who definitely will be the inheritors of the future of Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's have a panelist. And that brings us to, do we have time? I believe we've had a very useful and robust exchange.